In this tutorial, I will demonstrate how messages can be sent from NoteAbility Pro to other programs. In this case, I will use Max as an example. This can be useful if you would like to, for example, follow your score during a performance and have messages sent directly to a patch you are running to change the parameters remotely. So to begin, first open a score. I will pretend I'm writing a piece for flute and live electronics. So I will add a staff for flute, and then a staff for Max MSP, found in the Other tab, and then I will create the score. Now, before you can send messages from NoteAbility to another program, you first need to make sure that the staff that you want to send messages from is equipped to send them. First, find the Network tab on the right side of your score, and you can see a list of IP addresses and ports that you can send to. So you can actually send to any computer or IP address on your network, but in this case, we're going to send from one program on our computer to another program on our computer, so type in localhost. And then confirm that the port that you're sending on is a port in which you can receive messages in your other program. And then close that tab, and then open the Tracks menu, and make sure that the far bottom right box that says Net is set to 1, since that is where we just adjusted it to localhost. And then also find the drop-down menu and change to Net Message. And the final step is just locate in the Tools menu the Network Port panel and make sure that it's set to UDP Send and Receive. So actually in NoteAbility you can send also on, for example, OS-C, and this will be shown in a later tutorial, but for now, set UDP Send and Receive. Your track is ready to send messages. And now we can type in our first message. So to do this, locate the Message tool in the Tools toolbar, which says Max on it, and then click in the location of the score where you want your message to be sent, and type in any message. For now, I'll type testing. And now we can go into the other program. In this case, I'll open Max MSP and check that the message is able to be received. So to receive the message, we'll create a UDP receiver. Make sure that the port is the same as the port that the messages are being sent on in NoteAbility Pro. And then for now, I will just add a message box to make sure that the messages are being received, and then play back the score to see that this test message is being properly sent. And you can see that in Max, this does change in the message box, so the message is properly sending and being received. Now I'm going to send 3 values from NoteAbility to Max because I would like to use these values from NoteAbility to play back a MIDI note at a specified pitch, velocity, and duration in Max. So I'll type in these 3 values, and then I will go ahead and play this back, and you can see that these 3 numbers are coming in to Max. However, right now they are actually coming in as a string. To mitigate this, simply add from symbol beneath the UDP receiver, and now it is no longer a string. Now I will go ahead and set up my MIDI keyboard to receive these messages, and I can demonstrate how then this is altered when I play through my NoteAbility score. And now I will add a few more MIDI notes in my NoteAbility Pro score so that we can see how these messages change the MIDI playback. And now I will play back my score. But what if you want to send multiple lists or multiple values to different parameters in your program that aren't simply easy to just unpack as a list? In this case, you can prepend a symbol at the beginning of a message and then root this in Max. So in this case, I will prepend MIDI. And then in Max, I will add a routing object after the from symbol so that it only allows through any messages that are prepended with the word MIDI. So you can see that all of the notes that have MIDI in the beginning are able to come through. With a little bit of patching, messages can also be sent directly from NoteAbility Pro to corresponding receive objects in Max. So for now, we'll leave the MIDI preface on all of these messages we've already established. And then we'll go ahead in Max and add a prepend semicolon. And then we'll add a receive MIDI message. And when I play back my score, we can see that the messages still come through. So here I will add a second message underneath MIDI with a different prefix separated by a semicolon. And now I will add the corresponding receives into my Max patch. And then I will play through the score again. And now we can receive multiple messages at once. So this is very useful if you want to, for example, run a piece with live electronics and you want to follow the score and have certain actions happen at certain points in your piece without you actually interacting with the Max patch. Now let's try and send some values from Max into NoteAbility Pro. So in NoteAbility, all you need to do before you are able to actually receive messages onto any staff is just to ensure that you are receiving data on the correct ports. In our case, 3002, 3003, 3004. And so we can quickly go ahead and locate the Max patch that we're going to use to send these and double check that the port that the messages are being sent on is one of these ports. Now I would like to add some notes to the flute part in this score by sending them from Max MSP. And in this case, I'm using a simple tool to place notes at a specified location in the score. So I'm going to create a piece that is 128 seconds long. So I'm going to type this into my Max patch. In this box where it says list of locations, I'm just going to go ahead and add all of the locations where I would like a note to appear. And then I will click Send to NoteAbility Pro. Now you can see that several notes of a quarter length duration have appeared in my score. Now I will open the Max patch to show actually where these notes were sent. And you can see that several values are being prepended to this note. Then it's being sent over UDP localhost into port 3002. So it's going directly into the NoteAbility score. But the process for doing this is actually quite simple. The values you need to send to NoteAbility are first the pitch, and this ranges from 0 to 127, so they are MIDI notes. 0 is a rest. The velocity between 0 and 127, just like MIDI, and the duration in beats, so for example, 1 is a quarter note. The staff number, which is actually indexed from 0. So in this case, I needed all of the notes to appear on staff 1, but I actually sent them to staff number 0. So the staff you will send to that you need to send from Max will always be 1 less than the corresponding staff number in the NoteAbility Pro score. Then you need the voice on staff. The voice on staff corresponds to the notation layer. So if you look in the command bar in NoteAbility Pro, there are 3 options. One is a note that can go either up or down, and then next to it there are notes that must go up and notes that must go down, and those are simply other layers in the score. And in this case, I put them all on the first one, which is 0. So these voices will be 0, 1, or 2. And after the voice, you need to add the beat position. And note that this is not beats in the bar. Within the bar, it is actually referring to a global beat structure. And then finally, you can give these messages an ID. So this can be any unique number, and this is really just if you want to re-reference this message or ask like this note, which is in this position of the score, to be deleted or moved or changed in some way, that you have some way of accessing it. So now we're going to set up a manual note message and send this into NoteAbility Pro, so we can see how this actually works. So now I will create a new max patch. I will make sure that I have a UDP send and my port number of 3002. Whenever you want to send a note to be received into NoteAbility Pro, you need to make sure that it is prefaced with the symbol R note. So I'll just add a prepend R note there. And now I can begin to add my values. So if we remember first, the first value is the pitch. So here I will add 64. And then I will add a velocity of 100. And then I will add a duration of 4 so that it is actually 4 beats. And then I will make sure that I am on staff number 0, which is actually staff number 1 in NoteAbility. And then I will put this on the first voice, so I'll add 1, 0. And then I will put this into beat number 12. And finally, I will just give this a simple ID of 1. Now I will go ahead and send this message into NoteAbility. And you can see that at beat 12, a whole note was added on MIDI number 64. So this process is quite simple. And this can be a very useful tool if you want to, for example, generate things and then add them into the score, or if you want to even generate a score in real time or adjust a score in real time. This is a very brief overview of the simplest way in which you can add notes and some of the basic tools for communication between NoteAbility and other software. There are many, many other things you can do in NoteAbility and nuances, and I encourage you to explore the programs and test all of the capabilities.